Really, it's about the last Russian emperor, both as a human being, but above all as a man who was doing a very difficult job. So it is about the nature of the job, what it meant to be Russian autocrat. It's about the context and the challenges, which means both the domestic challenges and the international challenges. And it's an attempt to explain how he saw the job, how he attempted to meet the challenges, and in the end, why he failed.
Russia would go on like that for another century?
If the Russians could have managed their domestic crisis, and this was a view very commonly held in London as well as in Paris, not just in Berlin or Vienna, they would be the dominant power in northern Eurasia within a generation.
Certain people saying that the Russian Empire collapsed because of the ban on alcohol.
The war, for reasons which were inescapable, created an enormous inflationary crisis in Russia. And the fact that you had abolished the alcohol monopoly, which brought in something between a quarter and a third of state revenue at the beginning of the war, was obviously not at all helpful.
To what extent were the imperial authorities aware of what we now know as Russia's natural resources?
Absolutely, yes. Amidst all the awful problems of managing the empire at the time, they were sustained by a sense that in the long run, things were on their side. The trouble was that the German General Staff, and Bettmann Hollweg, are perfectly capable of making the same calculation.
How were the German High Command so as aware as the Russians were?
I mean, from the British perspective, there is a big argument going on as to whether in anything but the short run, Germany or Russia is a bigger threat to British interests. The British reckon they've lost the competition with Russia for the domination of Eurasia.
What do you think would have happened had Stolypin not been assassinated?
I wouldn't denigrate Stolypin in the slightest, but I don't think his death was crucial. I doubt, apart from anything else, Stolypin was to some extent attempting to follow a sort of national liberal line.
Do you think that abdication was absolutely unavoidable?
The reason for the abdication in the end was simple. The top generals deserted Nicholas. And they did so partly because, like most of the Russian elite, they'd lost confidence in his ability to win the war. But they also did so because when revolution erupted on the streets of Petrograd in February 1917, in a sense, the Duma leadership co-opted it.
We have an image of the Tsar with Grand Duke Nikolai Nikolaevich, his cousin. I wonder if you might make a comment about the idea that his slightly taller cousin could have done a better job.
Removing Nikolai Nikolaevich and putting Alexeyev in as, actually, in reality, commander-in-chief, replaced a mediocre general by actually a very good one. Russia had not lost the First World War in February 1917. On the contrary, if without the revolution, they were bound to be on the winning side once America came in. What winning would have meant for an exhausted Tsarist Russia, in a coalition of victorious Western democracies, is another matter.
So clearly there was pretty big miscalculation about World War I. Is your view that they had other options or paths they could have taken, or was it almost a fait accompli, they got sucked in?
If Russia had won the Japanese war, then things might have been very different, because of course at that point Russia would have had a Japan anxious for revenge sitting on its eastern frontier, and might well then willy-nilly have been forced into a deal on the Kaiser's terms, which would have boiled down to you run Europe, we'll run Asia.
If you could comment on the extent and the effectiveness of German involvement. Obviously they were fighting the hybrid war, the military and then political.
If you will back to 1905, the 1905 revolution, the Russian monarchy very nearly collapsed. If it had, the revolution would have gone far to the left, perhaps not as far as in 17, but it's in the nature of things. Well, if it had, you'd have had massive European intervention spearheaded by the German army. The Kaiser had already promised the representatives of the Baltic Germans in Berlin. He told them that so long as the Russian monarchy survives, Germany stays out. If the monarchy falls and the revolution goes to the west, to the left, as it will, the German army will intervene, and it would have intervened as the spearhead of European counter-revolution.
A very big thank you for an excellent talk and discussion.